Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and record, and I'm gonna start sharing my screen. All right, so I have one of Emil's earlier massing models up here, right, that he shared with me. And so, one of the things I would start to think about is, well, I have a requirement of 2 exterior perspectives. What do I do, right? And how do I use those to help me design the facade, the elevation, the skin, the envelope of my building, right? And then all the area around it, along the sidewalk, the street edge, the civic space over here right now that's sort of populated with blue blocks, sort of signifying that I want some program there of interest, right? And so first thing I'm going to do is just take these and let's see, I'm going to go to, right now it's in parallel or isometric view. I'm going to go to perspective. Okay. And I'm going to take 50 down to, let's say, about 30 millimeter. There we are, it's a little better. All right. And so let's say, this is street grade, right? This is, I'm going to guess somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 20 feet. And so I'm going to try to situate myself in at sort of eye level here. Oh, not very well, mind you, but and my mouse isn't quite sensitive enough to really get a good feeling of this. So let me just do something like this. Right, and then I have all this sort of stuff hovering up above. I'm just going to hide that really quickly. Looks weird. Floating blocks. All right. And so again, from here, it's kind of like, well, what do I want to see, right? Here's this prominent corner, right? Carson on the right-hand side and Las Vegas Boulevard on the left-hand side, sort of, I'm standing out in the middle of the intersection, basically. And so, what I'm going to do first is probably just sort of, try to situate myself and save some of these views. So if I go to the viewport pull down, and I go to set view, right, where I can sort of say, I want to see top view or perspective view or axon. And I go to named views, right? It brings up this box and there's a save button. And I can, as I start to identify perspectives that I'm interested in sort of pursuing potentially, right, I can save them, right? So I'll call this perspective from northeast corner, right? I'll move this box over here and I'll think about maybe something over here, right? So here's something where I can start to see a civic space, a courtyard, something that pushes through the building. I can still see a little bit of the streetscape along Las Vegas Boulevard, right? Just going to try to situate myself and maybe save that. I'll call this perspective from southeast corner or something like that. Did I save it or not? Oh, I see. They're just so large for some reason. All right. And so again, I'm just sort of coming around. I want to have a conversation with each of you of like, what we're going to be looking at with your interior and exterior perspectives. And so it's so easy to sort of mock these up and sort of understand, well, what am I looking at here? If I, let's say, am getting down into this area here, right, where I can sort of see, maybe there's going to be an amphitheater over here. Maybe there's going to be some grass turf, some people riding bicycles through, something over here. Let's say a bunch of kids eating a brown bag lunch because they're on field trip, and it's so nice, because it's October that they can eat outside in this space or whatever it is, right? You can still see a little bit of entrance here, and you can still see some of these stacked volumes, and maybe there's this is glass because it's sort of underhung underneath. Maybe it's shaded partially, etc. So again, I'm just thinking about different ways to sort of, maybe I'll hide this block since it's in the way here real quick. Yeah. So I'll sort of say plaza and courtyard view or something like that, right? But I'm just going to go around and start to sort of think about this stuff. if I don't, once I identify these two things, I don't have to design the entire building facade. I only have to, you know, design and model the parts that I'm actually going to see for right now. Does that make sense? Okay. At least in a certain amount of detail, right? So, you know, adding mullions and glass and things like that, right? So, and, you know, joints and seams between, you know, pieces of materials and things like that, right? So, I just want to sort of make that super clear, right? Once I go into Photoshop or once I have these, you know, I mean, I actually, you know, the way I do these is I usually just sort of print them out and start drawing on them with trace paper with the pen. But I mean, even now I can sort of start to try to paint a picture, right? Where I can, you know, maybe I make a super line, okay, super skinny. And let's say, you know, first of all, I'm going to try to identify where eye level is. That's going to be like right down here, right? And so I'm going to start to, you know, place people, you know, in various places, you know, back in here. Maybe I have a couple of folks sort of sitting here eating lunch, you know. You know, maybe there's a, again, some sort of makeshift amphitheater. You know, maybe there's a couple of trees. Shade would be super important here. Again, sort of populate some things with people and start to think about these things, right? You know, maybe there's about, you know, putting some of those stupid looking bike racks and add a couple of bicycles here. Right, or even have a couple cyclists moving through. But then, you know, what you can begin to do is start to think, okay, if this is glass, right, how does that look like? Maybe I have a sort of thick frame around this, right? And, you know, I inset the glass back quite a bit, right? Now I can start to think about, you know, there's going to be a set of mullions back here, right? There's going to be a certain height to these, right? Let's see, maybe there's a sort of double set here and here. I mean, you can just begin to sort of experiment quickly. I think that's the key, right? Get the thoughts from your brain onto paper somehow, right out here, where we can all look at them, talk about them, critique them, sort of understand what your vision is, and the strengths and the weaknesses, and go from there, right? So, you know, to me, I think that's the key here, right? It's really easy to get lost in sort of some of the minutia that Rhino will ask you for, right? I need to rotate this. Well, how much? Down to decimal point of accuracy, right? Who the hell cares, right? I wanted to sort of, you know, move things around in perspective sometimes and sort of test some things, right? Sometimes it's easier to do that in Rhino. Sometimes it's easier just to sort of come out here in paper space and draw, right? But to me, I think that's super important, right? You know, again, if I think about, you know, what the solid parts are, what the sort of unsolid parts are, right? You know, again, maybe there's this sort of language of glass, you know, versus solid parts back in here, right? So, you know, maybe this is glass again. Not doing a very good job of drawing straight lines downwards with my mouse, but you know, and these look almost like stair towers, like they're going to be solid, right? Maybe they're concrete, you know, or whatever. But you know, sort of trying to design this and to think about the sort of material palettes that you're using, and how those things all go together is super important, right? Now suddenly I have some glass facing this courtyard, right? And maybe these things can actually open out, and I start to get, like, you know, people moving back and forth and under here in this sort of shaded outdoor area. Maybe I experiment with this idea of the fountain or tree or something here, right? Maybe make a small sort of microclimate, right? You could actually use evaporative cooling here, and actually affect the sort of climate in this sort of small courtyard plaza area. But what I would do is I would start to again think about flower beds with a couple of trees here. Add some plants, add some of these spiky yuccas with those flowering spikes and sort of plumes coming out, right? So, again, the idea here is to really sort of populate this space and start to sort of define character, right? And you could have people, you could have some food trucks out here. You could have people holding popsicles and sodas. You could have kids playing football. You could have or frisbee, or you could have somebody out here, two sort of performers out here, sort of performing, and in a crowd sitting here, sort of watching, right? The idea is, what kind of you have to paint the picture, right? You can't just make a civic space and say it's there, right? Show how it could be used, right? And then to begin to sort of define, some of the textures and ideas that you have for the building facade, right? And it's right away, if there's not enough building sort of interaction between the building and the space, or the building and this space, right? Then I start to understand, okay, I have some work to do here, right? So to me, I think use these drawing types is not like a checklist that you have to do by the end, but as now the sort of ways to explore the design further, so that at the end you have something that looks like these aren't just something to check off a list at the end, but rather it's a way to sort of investigate your design further, right? And to sort of really design it and get inside and get around it and get under it and over it and next to it, right? As soon as I go to, let's see, clear drawings, where'd there we go, my views, right? I go to set view, all those perspectives that I saved, right? They're right here, right? And I can go back to name views and bring up that box again, right? But let's say I wanted to go back to this view, right? The northeast corner. And again, we did this the other day, and I think one of these sessions, maybe, I don't know. Oh, here's Safari. I'll just use Safari. I like Safari. Maps.google.com. Maps. It's like what a goat says, maps. Maps. All right, there we go. Sorry, that was just a lame dad joke. All right, couldn't help myself. So there we are. I'm getting good at zooming in on this corner, aren't I? All right, so let's place myself right here. And by no coincidence, right, I'm looking kind of like exactly the way I was before. Wow, that's some convenient road construction there. Awesome, of course, right? All right, okay. But one of the things I could do is try to match up the perspective a bit here and get some of at least the background stuff, right, to sort of match in. What's interesting is, since this is like a sort of a photo stitch, it's very much a fisheye sort of dome environment that we're looking at any given spot. And so you can see that it actually has that 3-point perspective as well to it. So it actually works out to our advantage this time around. Sometimes it doesn't. Let's see. I'll just take a quick sample of this view, right? I could always dump that back in the background, cut out the foreground stuff, since it's so, like, there's some ugly men in the foreground, and I don't know if they're ugly, but whatever, I think they're ugly. Some construction barrels and things like that I wouldn't want. Maybe I want to redo the streetscape, so I would use the street and the streetscape with a blank palette here. But I have this parking garage and in the Bank of America building, and and this court, this court building stuff in the background, right? Maybe that easy pond somewhere back in here, right? Just sort of showing some context. I can desaturate that, lighten it up, so it doesn't really stand out too much, but sort of situates me in the context too, right? So I can begin to do a number of these things and start to, again, think about what happens here, right? Let me just, again, I'm just going to quickly, make a draft, and it'll be terrible, but I'm going to just take a draft in Photoshop. Transparent background, viewport, scale, let's say go with ×2. And I'll just try to remember to save a PNG file here. All right, save that to the desktop. Oh yeah, all right, great. So let me just try to pull up some Photoshop in the background while that's happening. All right, so Windows is thinking about that. In the meantime, my other monitor, Photoshop is popping up. There it is, sometime today. All right, maybe. Thought we were in the clear, guess not. Rhino not responding, okay. It takes a while sometimes to pull out those, oh yeah, look at that. I forgot we were doing this stuff before. Yeah, so let me just, again, wait for this to respond. My apologies for having a slow computer, apparently. Oh, Windows. 6.7 megabyte screen capture. That's decent size screen capture. All right. Let me also pull up the viewport capture I had up here. That's today at 10:14, right? So that would be that one. Yeah. Excellent. And a couple of things I'm going to do here, right? You see how uncomfortably close to the top I am right here with this corner? Yeah. Let's just pull up this crop tool, and I'm just going to extend my canvas upwards. What I'd like is to have just as much sky up here as I have ground down here, my sort of lowest and highest peak. I can always eyeball that, Again, maybe I want to center this up. Maybe I have a little too much over here. I can always do that. Actually, before I do that, let's go ahead and bring this in. Control A, Control C, right? So select everything, then copy, and then Control V, paste it in. Move that to the bottom. Hit Control T, scale it up. Perspective doesn't quite match up, does it? That's kind of goofy looking. Oh, kind of goofy looking. How about a whole lot of goofy looking? So here's what I'm going to do. Let's go. I still have this. I'm going to go to, is it distort? Yeah, it's distort. I'm just going to stretch some of this out a little bit, just to put it in the background. I don't need a lot. I'll just put some in the background here. I'm going to trim out that sky probably at some point anyway. Give myself a little more breathing room over here. Gotta get that easy pond sign in there. Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about. All right, let's see what that looks like. Could be a complete disaster, but. And, one other thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to take out some of this, take out this gunk. Yeah, I don't need any of that. Hit delete. There we go. Let's see if I can clip out the sky. That's most of it. Now just clip out this part. Get rid of that too. Now I'll just, there's a couple of smudges over here. So I'm just going to use my erase tool. Bump that up considerably. I guess that's on layer 1. There we go. Yeah, so we're starting to get there, right? But again, just in the spirit of collage, I just want to start collaging things, right? Let's take this, let's go to adjustments. Let's turn the saturation down quite a bit. Right, same thing here. I mean, I kind of like these colors, but not not like for paint for my exterior of my building. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the saturation down a bit here. I'll leave just a little hint of it. Why not, right? So from here, I can begin to start to, i.e. draw and or start to collage pieces of things in here, right? So what was that one site that we were at? Architecture, not architecture. Oh, come on. Really, I typed that in so much, it goes to the UNLV architecture website. Architecture. Why is it doing that? Architecture.com?
I threw the link
What a,
into the.
what a terrible, terrible website this is, by the way.
Oh,
First
me
of all,
me and Kate threw in the link into the chat.
okay, thank you so much. Throwing me a life jacket there. Perfect, because oof, I don't think I can. Architectures.org. All right. .org. By the way, never design a website that looks like this. Sorry, but that's not good. Oh boy. All right, let's see. Metal, stone, concrete, terrazzo, right. Limestone. Ooh, I like stone. Why not? Metal panel. There's a Flemish bond. It's a stretcher bond. Herringbone. I just kind of want just a regular old grid if I can find it. I like the limestone. Mm. Can you adjust the parameters after this? Let's see if we can just go with a sort of buff. No, just the scale, huh? Yeah, I'll download the JPEG. Why not? They don't have glass on here, do they? It's all right. Tile, terrazzo. Oh, now here's a pattern. Oh, oh, great. Not cubic. Stack. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Some oddly specific things though here. But sandstone, that could be kind of interesting. Let's try some sandstone. I don't know if it actually downloaded or not. Let me double check. It sure did. Look at that. Edit. Oh, here we go. Nice. Noise. Wow, there's more stuff here than I thought. This is crazy. You can only go up to 12 by 12, huh? Yeah, interesting. Tense, uneven. Wow, this is almost too much stuff. You can change the mortar color too. That's great. Download. Right, so but I could begin to sort of think about, let's see here. Concrete metal. Let's go with metal. Stack. Yeah, I really kind of just want a grid. Let's see. Aluminium. Well, that didn't work. What in the world? How do I make them square? There we go. Yeah. Oh, yeah. All right. Maybe. All right. So I'm just going to maybe throw some things on here really quickly. But again, I'm just testing things out, right? I mean, now's the time to do that. For sure. Let's see, downloads, right? There's aluminum stack, there's blonde limestone, sandstone, and limestone. I'll just open all three of these up, four of these up. Let's see what I have here. All right, copy, new. Just gonna make this larger maybe. Or no, I'll just copy, yeah. And then I'll paste in here. Oop, nope, I guess I didn't copy. Select all, copy, there we are. Now copy. Might copy a couple of times. Right, and again, just sort of stack these things up. Let's see, I'll take all these layers, I'm gonna merge them, right? I'm gonna rename them aluminum. Turn down the opacity a bit, right? And let's say I'm gonna give one of these stacked blocks some aluminum goodness here. So let me just make a couple of duplicates of this. There we go. I'll do this one. Let's see. I'm just gonna go to edit, transform, distort, right? Just gonna stretch this dude out right here. The other day I noticed Kate was getting really good at this, right? I think a few others are as well. Just taking my time, trying to snap these to the corners. Hit OK. You turn that opacity back up now. All right. Now I'm going to do the same thing with this aluminum copy over on this side. Right, go to edit, transform, distort. Now it's time to line these up just the way they be, I suppose. And that would go there. This one would go something like that. Now we'll have to trim that out at some point, but yeah, not too bad. Not the best, but again, quick, down and dirty, sort of quick collage, right? Process. Oops. Now look what happened. I think I have my feather tool set or something. It looks like I'm sort of feathered some things out here. I don't know what's going on there, but let's go here. Yeah, feather was set to 0 or 15. I'm going to set that back to 0. That way I get a nice crisp selection edge here. There we go. Yeah, crispy. All right. Right, and so I could begin to, again, start to differentiate, let's say some of these volumes, pushing and pulling out from the facade. And in some cases, just sort of talk about, there's going to be some glass boxes in here as well. Right? So, so what parts are solid, which parts aren't, or maybe it's, here's what would be interesting, right? As I go around, at a certain point, let's say here to here to here to here to here, right? We turn on aluminum. Boom, right? Maybe now I have glass in here, right? So one of the things I'd probably do is throw some more aluminum in here, and I will just distort this dude really quickly. All right, I'm just gonna pop this right in here. Right in here. It's going to look kind of goofy for a few minutes, but it is what it is. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to do that. No, yeah, maybe I will. Sorry. I will do that. Why not? It's quick. You guys are judging me, aren't you? I can tell the silence is awkward. Like I
Yeah,
can't
no
believe
judgment, no judgment.
I can't
happening.
believe this guy's trying to teach us Photoshop. That's what you guys are thinking.
No, we're grateful.
All right, so that was more trouble than it was worth. I'll just get rid of that. Okay, but then let's say back in here, let's say there's going to be glass, and so one of the things I could do is go around here, go around like this. Oh, I accidentally hit. Oh darn! I hate that when I accidentally hit something, and I select it, and then have to like start all over again. That's the worst. First world problems, I suppose. Still, it is the worst. Hashtag Adobe Photoshop. Maybe let's see. In this layer, I use the eyedropper tool, and I find this bluish that's going to be kind of like the sort of glass. And then I paint inside of here to give it an edge, right? Maybe I could actually, again, begin to sort of, give a few lines there, start to give some sort of sense of mullion. So this is glass, framed with this sort of really solid sort of stone or concrete or whatever, right? So again, my key thing is don't strive for photorealism, right? Strive for making a bunch of design decisions and building up a sort of nice collage, right? And embrace the sort of part of it that would be a sort of collage, right? From here, again, I would need to really start to think about the street, right? So from here, I need to make a sort of inviting entrance, right? I need to sort of talk about, well, where can I see inside and where I can't? I need to think about maybe some signage. I need to think about, the streetscape and really sort of populating this with a bunch of pedestrians walking under some shady trees, right? Maybe I put a car or two in the street here, whatever. But what I'm doing is I'm just sort of trying to give a sense of like, okay, what is this thing really going to look like on the outside, right? I know you've changed the massing of this and pushed and pulled this, right? Since then, this is just an early example from before that Emil was doing. It seems like this side's darker, so my aluminum, I'm actually going to, let's see, I'll burn this part. Okay, I'll just make a really super large burn brush for that. Just do it twice, right? Again, just sort of thinking about the perspective and the lighting, right? The light looks like it's coming from the north for some reason, and not so much from the east. So anyway, I'd give the sky, let's throw in some trees. Why not? So again, I want you guys to this might be, you save this as, right? It's like, here's just initial draft collage. And it becomes the placeholder in your PowerPoint for your presentation, right? And then we can have a nice conversation about it, and have a conversation about it, after seeing the next one too, right? And sort of trying to sort of, again, hear what you're trying to say and see what you're trying to say, right? Once you start to put these whole things together, all these things together, even in draft form, right? You start to make a sort of more, it's the only way I know of to sort of, again, integrate everything together in a nice holistic way, right? Is to do it sooner rather than later, right? If you develop this over here and develop this over here, you never see them together, right? Till the very end, we'll probably be able to tell, right? So that's my point here. Let's see, textures. I have some textures already loaded here. Maybe I'll throw in some sky. Maybe I'll throw in some, I don't know which trees would actually be good. So I'll just open all of them. Why not? I don't care. There we are. Well, that's a shrub, isn't it? There's a tree. That doesn't look like a street tree. This looks like it could be a street tree, though, doesn't it? That one, maybe. What a sky. Holy moly. Maybe I'll try to find a sky where I have like, you can see the arc of like airplane lights in the distance sort of flying in and landing into the airport or something. One with a helicopter and some hot air balloons in it. Throw in some birds. Control A, Control C. And where's my viewport capture right there? Right. You throw in some trees here in the distance. Right. Oops, accidentally selected the building. That probably shouldn't move so much. Right, and I would need a couple of these to sort of start to mix it up. I don't want it to look like I'm sort of just clone stamping these things in here, right? Maybe let's see what it looks like if these things are actually flipped. No, that's like too much of a carbon copy of it, right? And again, with the perspective though, this one would be taller, this one would be shorter in the back, right? I could begin to add, let's see. I can't do those all at once. I can put them on the same layer. I'll just merge layers. Quickly call those trees, image, adjustments, hue, saturation. Let's turn down the saturation a bit. And let's make it just a little more gold in it. Almost to an orange, something like that, right? You know, again, thinking about this ground plane, right? You know, you could leave that white. I mean, one of the things I might do is just decide, you know, do I want the sky or do I, you know, maybe that's not the focus here. Maybe I'll just add a layer underneath. Oops, it didn't work out. I'll make it white. There we go. Right, start adding people or whatever. Again, you know, maybe not, you know, I don't know. We'll see. But, you know, at this point, you know, just thinking about this sort of urban surface and how your building engages with it, what it looks like from here, right? Because this is how people see it. Either walking by it, driving by it, right? Very few people ever fly over and look at it from axon view, like they're in a helicopter, right? So, you know, it's really kind of important to sort of think in these terms, right? To think from eye level, right? Whether it's from here or here, right? Or the other way, right? So, you know, again, just sort of thinking out loud, right? To me, I think that's something that I would really say, right? You know, your exterior perspectives, we have several requirements, like, hey, you need to, you know, show the civic space in one of them, you know, and sort of talk about how it'd be used. You know, I have several options now, you know, one that's sort of immersed inside that space, or one here along the street that I sort of looks into that space. You know, and sort of thinking about, you know, how do I mock these up so I can make a better decision about which ones to keep and which ones not to keep, right? Sort of thing. These aluminum layers are bugging me. I'm just going to merge them and get rid of that copy in the label. And I'm going to turn them to some sort of, yeah, maybe something like that. Right, sort of subdue them a little more. Here, maybe I try to get rid of all of the color, that sort of tan and blue and red. This doesn't work. So hue, saturation. Right. Now we're starting to sort of think about, you know, maybe a different material palette, you know, based off of the mass, you know, maybe not, right? Maybe you have to cover this stuff up. There's nothing to say these have to be in full color or any color. You could always desaturate all of them and make them black and white if you wanted to. Or maybe you just pick one color that you know is used, and just a couple of splashes, right? Again, to draw someone's eye to it, a particular spot or particular item or thing here, right? And so again, when it comes to eye level, what you were talking about, Emil, right? Eye level would be somewhere like right around here. And, you know, then I could start to throw in some people. I don't know if I have a lot of people sitting around anywhere. I'll just open up those silhouettes I had in Illustrator again really quickly. But here's where, again, if you have just like a few people sort of randomly standing, sitting in places, it looks kind of odd, right? But if you really sort of, you know, say, hey, this is a, you know, maybe this is a nice urban corridor that's well traveled by people, then, you know, it starts to look better, right? I like these top sort of sets right here. So I'll copy, I'll paste those in as pixels. I don't know. Sure, why not? And okay, except they're all like on the same layer now. That's annoying. So one thing I could do is maybe is just undo that. Here we go. And I'll just copy and paste them in separately. Right, I want certain people. All right, here we have a couple. Right, so I'm going to line up their eye level, and then I'm going to scale them the way I need to. Throw in some kids, why not? I like this one. Why not? Chain of people. There we go. Having fun. Downtown Las Vegas. Taking the kids to downtown Las Vegas, right? I mean, it's kind of nice when we can do that. Where to go? Pixels. There they are. I don't know why they disappeared, but there they are. Okay. Right. Once again, sort of thinking about maybe these folks are further back. Somewhere back in there. They're getting ready to enter the museum with their kids or whatever. Yeah, we'll have some people walking, standing. Okay. So don't be afraid to sort of just that groups of people. Start to layer people and silhouettes in here in different ways. Again, I'm gonna, if they're at the street, I'm gonna line them up in similar ways here along those guides and then stretch them out a bit. Make this guy a little closer. All right. Okay, and so again, you could go on and on and on and on here, but I mean, again, I would start this process sooner rather than later, and just think of it as, the more go-arounds we have, the better these things get, right? So just start with something. It doesn't have to be good, but as soon as you start to think about, okay, I have 2 shots of the outside. That's it. Now, how can I make those as valuable as possible to my presentation, showing whatever they can show, right? And then to figure out, okay, then sequencing wise, you'll have time to go through this over and over again, sort of understand, okay, well, what order should these things be in, right? As I start to talk through the process and then the final results of this design project that I've been working on for several weeks, right? And so, does that help a little bit? I hope. Start the collage, start the collages. As soon as sorry, let me share my screen one more time. One person, share my screen. As soon as I start to see your planar compositions and how you're starting to look at the interior perspectives, right? I start to understand that maybe, I'm going to have some sort of weird gaps and things like that in here. I might have some, a sort of, recessed, come on. I hate that I can't do this selection over sometimes. These weird selections here, right? Like, so for instance, I might have an opening here with glass, right? In which case, let me see if I try to find some glass here. Eesh. Maybe I will just do this, go on this layer back here and find sort of bluish. It's just slightly, let's have a little bit of blue to it, right? And I'll go over here and I'll darken that up considerably. And decrease the size of this. And ooh, that did not work. Let's feather that. 15. Now let's use that brush maybe. Right, I can just quickly start to muck these things up, right? You know, a plane pulls back from the other plane, right? To create an opening, right? So that, you know, and I don't know, the summer solstice in the morning time at 9 a.m., right? We get a beam of light that shoots all the way across the atrium and hits the other side of the building or whatever it is, right? So I can begin to, you know, again, play these games and start to understand, you know, what kind of vocabulary I'm doing on the outside here, right? And again, it's just collage. It's really quick, right? Really quick. But again, to sort of think about this as a process where you don't have to sort of get everything figured out in your head. And then it's a challenge to sort of try to like represent it out here, right? The representation is part of the process of designing it and developing it, right? You can't do everything in your head. You have to get it out on paper so we can talk about it over and over and over again, right? The iterative process. Okay, so that's where I'm going with this, right? Between now and next Tuesday, right? You should think about this, you know, your presentation and that checklist of deliverables for studio, and start thinking about each one. You know, maybe you don't get anywhere near this far. Maybe it's all about just trying to come up with several ideas on some perspectives in Rhino, and you just pull those out, right? You just do the view capture, and you dump them into the presentation so we can have a conversation about, well, which one might be better, and this one's good, but you know the top is cropped, or you know maybe you need to zoom out, or you know, or show a little more of what's going on in the ground plane here in the civic space in front of it, or whatever it is, right? Okay, so does that again? I'm hoping that this is starting to sort of get some gears in your brains, some other gears in your brains that maybe haven't been going yet, right? That sort of, you know, right brain and left part of your brain sort of at the same time. Oop, I had feather set to 0 or 15, right? This is just going to bug me till I fix it. I desaturated everything, but now I want to put, if this is going to be glass, I'm going to use the same glass color and texture everywhere, right? For consistency. So now I need to do this. Is that an aluminum level layer? I don't remember anymore. You know, I could do things the hard way, right? Or I could just make my brush bigger and then I have to go back over it fewer times. Yeah, there we go. Maybe I do the same thing up here. The feather of 15. Think about. Giving this a little more depth. Oh no. Stop. That didn't work out. Anyway, I think you probably get the idea, right, at this point, but just thought I would start to fix this. A little bit of feathering. Bring this down, darkness, there we go. What's going on? Don't know why this is. Is the opacity down or something? Just do a new layer. There we go. I don't know what was going on there. All right, and now I just need to trim that out. Of course, I had feather on. That's so annoying to go back and forth between feather and no feather. Sorry. All right.
So what exactly does feather do again?
Okay, I'll show you. So here, let me just zoom out. So what feather does is, for instance, let's look at it from the paintbrush side for a moment. Paintbrush, right? This is not feathered, right? This is a sort of solid brush. You can see when I paint with it, maybe. Why is it not painting? Oh, sorry, paintbrush. There we go. Right, I get a nice sort of crisp edge when I use a feathered brush or feathered edge brush, right? Then I try to get a similar size brush here. Then I get one where you have a sort of gradient or feathered edge. What's going on? Oh, sorry. Right? So it's the same thing with, so it's the same thing with the selection, right? So I have a feather of 0. And if I draw a rectangle and I draw inside of it, I'll get a nice crisp edge, right? It's binary. It's like it's this side or that side, right? If I go feathered edge, let's say 15, and I draw the same rectangle close to it, right? See how it's already rounded it off? And when I draw inside, it sort of feather the edges for me into a sort of gradient. And if I decide to feather it even more, let's say 45, right? Then there'll be even more of a gradient around those edges. So it sort of softens and feathers out those edges from, okay? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The
So
feathering now?
that's what I would probably want to use then if I was trying to make like a light beam, right? The feather.
Yeah,
too.
exactly. Yeah, you want to use the feathered stuff, right? Absolutely, absolutely, right? So that's why when I start to draw these polygons, right, these polygon selections, you know, I'm always going up here and looking at the feather, right? So 15 or 20 pixel feather, right? That way you don't get such a sharp edge, but you get something that looks almost like you know, a beam of light. Let's say there's a beam of light coming through here or something, right? Now when I start to paint with some white here, right, it starts to glow around that edge. Okay. All right. Again, this is kind of, it's not the greatest collage at all, right? But it's just a start. It's just a start, right? I mean, on this now we say, okay, we really need to talk about, you know, what sort of vertical volumes are popping out and what horizontal ones are popping out, and start to really, I think, play around with, okay, how do we arrange this sort of composition of shapes, right? And then how do we make openings in them, right? And how do you reconcile that with the interior perspective, the inside, where you want to have light coming in from this angle or that angle or from the top or whatever, right? So, but you know, how do you address the street and pedestrians, right? How do you make an identity for this place, right? So all that kind of stuff comes to the forefront once you sort of identify, you know, okay, here's where my perspectives are going to be, right? And I want to know now, right, as soon as possible, because then we can, you know, I don't want any unpleasant surprises at the very end. There's nothing worse than like you saved a decision, a big decision for the end, and you make the wrong one, or one where everybody sort of like goes cringes, right? You know, because you know, at this is the point in time where we can make a bunch of decisions that we can then, once we're happy with those, then everything can be developed at the sort of same level, up to the same level, right? And so we don't want like an overly developed plan and an undercooked elevation of, you know, what this thing looks like on the outside, right? We want a certain amount of parity among all the sort of drawings, so that it looks like, you know, the same person that drew the floor plans also sort of, you know, figured out and drew the perspective and you know, populated it with people and stuff like that, right? So anyway, I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to stop recording.